In 2013, I coined the name Grampion, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Hey, Grampion Nation, welcome back. One of the things that I found out recently is that authentic is the most searched word in 2023 on ChatGPT. And I found the definition of authentic, and I found it down in Southern California. And I found it in the person who is really close to some of the roots of our industry and has built an amazing event production company. And so she's got this new and different atmosphere and vibe. And she's been in the television and sports business, a director at Fox News, 5 years as a director of marketing in our own beloved wireless space. And I'm shocked and surprised that we got to sit down with her even for a moment because she's running pretty hard and pretty fast. So I am grateful, Grampion Nation, to welcome to our show, Kari Willis with EFactor. How are you, Kari?
I am wonderful, and thank you for having me on. I mean, there's two speeds. I either run or I'm sleeping, right? So, so I don't know any different.
That's awesome. You are the co-founder and president of EFactor. Welcome to the Grampion.
Thank you.
Where are you right now? Are you?
I am in North Dallas, so I live up in Prosper, Texas.
North Dallas, okay. But yet a lot of your business is over on the other coast, not the Texas coast.
Yes, all the coast, to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
we travel quite a bit, and that's also why it's great to be in Texas because I can get anywhere in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, perfect. So, what have you been up to lately? Tell us a little bit about EFactor, and I mean, this is a little bit unusual to have someone who's from the wireless industry, but in it, but not in it, but in it, but not in it. So, what is EFactor, and what have you been up to?
Yeah, absolutely. EFactor. So a lot of people I always love to share is that E stands for experience, right? It's the experience factor, and
Right.
that's what brings me joy, is bringing experiences to people. Like we love to create live events or live experiences for people, whether it be brands, whether it be events, because it's the same. When you think about a lot with brands, Starbucks, great example, right? We know what you're going to get. You know, the
Sure.
environment in there. It's the experience of that cup of coffee. It's not necessarily that it's the best coffee you've ever had. It's the experience that they give
Right.
you, right? And that's a lot. The reason why I bring it up is a lot went through our conversation when we started EFactor.
Mhm.
And that's really what we do. It's bringing that human connection, whether it being to an event or to a brand. And but what have we been up to? Gosh, the last year we celebrated 12 years in business, which is
Wow.
super exciting. I will tell you, when I started it as a female-owned business back in 2012, the amount of female-owned businesses at the time was less than 1% actually make it to the 10-year mark. So for me,
Yeah.
that 10-year mark, I bawled like a baby. I was like,
Yeah.
we did it, we're here at 10 years. To be like now talking about 12 and okay, when are we going to hit 15? When are we going to hit 20? Blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but it's crazy to think now. I remember because I read that statistic when I started the business, and I was like, oh, if we can just make it to 10 years, that would be unbelievable. So
Yeah.
to have passed that is pretty exciting. We've got teams in California, teams in Texas. We travel all over. Did some work internationally last year, so it's been a fun ride. Not without the grind, not without its hiccups, and you know, like everyone says, entrepreneurship and owning a business, it's like a roller coaster, and there's no better analogy. And that
It is
happens
a
only
roller
one day.
coaster.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about that little bit of dopamine you get, and I call it a Super Bowl moment when you win Super Bowl, but it's really,
Yep.
if you talk to the people who won that Super Bowl,
Hmm.
generally speaking, they don't talk about that moment. They talk about the practices and the
Right.
difficulties in the weight room and the camaraderie, mostly the camaraderie. And it's
Yep.
true. It's so much more true in business because we spend so much more time with our people. As an entrepreneur, these are not just employees. These are your people. You love them, nurture them, care for them,
Right.
and they care for you. Yeah.
right? Well, I mean, they, you have so much gratitude for
Mm.
them because they're believing in your dream.
Yeah.
And I think for so long, no one believed in the dream, right? You're just another event firm. There's 1,000 of those out there. What makes you
Yeah.
different, right? I'm sure everyone has it, right? You have those naysayers. And when you get people that believe in what you're creating, believe in the vision that you have, yes, the loyalty runs deep.
Yeah.
And, and that's why we always say anyone who has been on this journey with us with EFactor, whether they're still with us or not, we're grateful. I don't care if
Yeah.
you were with us for a year, we have people who've been with us 8 years out of 12.
Yeah.
I am grateful because you're all part of that story and they all got us to where we are today, right? And without the people, we're not here.
Exactly. And
One
at one point, whether they're with you or not, they actually bought it. They believed it. They bought it, and they were all pulling on the same rope. Well, congratulations on 12 years. That is so cool.
Thank you.
So, tell us about when I go to your website and stuff, you talk about immersive activities and events that are like epic. How do
Hmm.
you recreate epic? And you're an idea person. But
Yes.
I mean, epic is difficult it's tough to find that mojo every time, isn't it?
I would tell you, especially on events that you're creating year after year, right?
Uh-huh.
Because it's easier to your point on a like someone comes to us new and said, this is what we've been doing for 10 years, but we got to change it up. We come to you and they hire us. It's easy because it's new and it's fresh and you look at it from a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
To your point, that challenge is what also drives me in this business. I
Unbelievable.
love that brainstorming to go, okay, we crushed it last year and people loved these elements. How do we surprise them? How do we do it different? How do we outsmart the competition? How do people go, ooh, only EFactor would think of that? To me, that's the fun, right?
Yeah.
And I always tell the team, no idea is a bad idea. It maybe we can't financially create that at an event, but throw it on the table because something
Sure.
else will come of it. And yes, I love it. I mean, I'm the type of person when I wake up and can't sleep at 2 or 3 in the morning with entrepreneur brain going on. I am like, if we have upcoming events, like how do we make that special? How do we? I'm out on the internet going nuts, looking at ideas, brainstorming. I enjoy it. I love it, but
That is
it's
so
hard.
awesome. But you did not start there. You've got you've got a background I mean, it kind of reads like a who's who of American business. When you look at you just casually throw, yeah, well, back when I was with Fox Sports or back when I was with the Fox Broadcasting Company, that's kind of like got a aura or a picture of glamour. Um,
It
is that
did.
accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it was the glamorous. I mean, the job I had out of college, it was a glamorous job for someone who I love sports and had grown up in a big sports family. I was on the road in my 20s and traveling, working with some of the biggest names in the athletes at the time, setting up
Yeah,
commercial shoots and producing at that level. And it was incredible. I always say, and I've said it to some of my employees too, I will always take a chance on people if I see the potential because that's what happened to me in my career. I
yeah,
had people who probably saw my potential more than I even saw my own that gave me opportunity that maybe I not wasn't necessarily ready for, but I love a challenge. And I
yeah,
loved when people put me in a situation like that, believing in me. I'm not going to prove, I'm not going to let you
yeah,
fail. I'm going to make
yeah,
sure that I succeed for you. And it comes with a lot of sleepless nights and working
yeah.
like crazy hours, but that's all I knew. And it's one of those, I would say probably the biggest transition for me in owning a company was I was a doer, right? I would outwork anybody. Like
Yeah,
if you put me on a project, I will outwork them. I won't sleep. I'll do whatever I need to. When you own a company, you can't do it all.
yeah,
And to trust and delegate and make that switch for myself, for the company to be successcul,
yeah.
definitely was a big transition for
And
sure.
that's really the key to growth and scalability is finding your ability. Because I had the same. I mean, we started with two and ended up with 300. And
Crazy.
when you
Amazing.
do that, it's incredibly difficult because They're not going to do it exactly the same. They're not going to do it exactly. But you know what? It's going to get done. And if you just maintain high standard, then and expect them to keep it, then they don't want to let you down any more than you wanted to let whoever down.
Yes. And it's learning to appreciate that, right? You sound like
Yeah.
my business coach. I have a business coach, and she always tells me, good in this scenario is good. Doesn't have to be perfect, Kari.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be great and off the charts. Like, and it is, to your point, it's a big transition though. I mean, I still, right, 12 years into the business, there's still times I struggle with it.
Yeah.
Full
So,
disclosure, right?
so you also, after your Fox experiences, you went to mobility. How do you go? How do you go from Fox to the wireless ecosystem? I mean, that's just crazy cool, but it's
It's a
crazy
wild jump.
cool.
No, it's so true. And it is a wild jump, but I get that question a lot. Um, for me, I would tell you this much. Like when I was at Fox Sports, there at the time, I felt like I was hitting a wall because there was a lot of people sitting above that had been there for years.
Yeah.
And it started to become a job.
You
And what I mean by that is not a career. And I wanted more. I wanted that growth. I knew who I was as a person and what I wanted, and I wanted to do more. I was lucky with mobility. They wanted someone to come in and start their marketing department from scratch that
yeah.
wasn't from the industry, that had a different perspective, to take that fun, that sports background and bring it into the wireless space, not doing what everybody else was doing. Well, good for me because I didn't know anything about wireless space. So it was another one of those where opportunity that someone saw the potential in me, saw that I could bring this background that maybe didn't really align in wireless, but move it in. And to start right at Fox Sports, a marketing department's 50 deep. It's massive. I was starting as one person
Yeah.
as the marketing department. And I was like, wait, had to start from the logo to the color. I learned a ton.
Yeah.
And I had to learn a lot because I knew nothing about the wireless industry. Now I feel like I know a ton, thank goodness, but it was great. And the challenge, I will tell you, that's how I've lived my career. It's how I live. I don't shy away from challenges. I like them.
That is so
Right?
perfect.
I love it. And thank goodness because hello, in 2020, when we had a very big change in events in our world with COVID and everything, it was a challenge. And at least I was able to just look at it as another challenge because I had lived in that space for so much of my career and being challenged outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah, one of the things I took away, I just spent some time with the best speakers in the country. And they said, hey, we had all this backlog backed up to go out on the road and do a keynote speech and bring your best to the audience. You do a lot of advanced work. You do a lot of preparation, a lot of practice, a lot of grind. But then you get in the moment, and all of a sudden, all the moments try. They went from backlogs that were huge to nothing. You had, especially with your Western population, that had to be boring.
It was the worst time. There's no sugarcoating it. It was awful. I will tell you, I didn't want to pick up my phone. I didn't want to look at my email because everything was canceling.
Yeah.
And come to find out, within 2 weeks of the shutdown, we had lost 90% of the business gone. And you're not going to be a jerk because we're big on relationships. Like we talked about at the beginning of this, like it's all about people and relationships.
Yeah.
So you're letting people out of contracts and you're letting them not pay you. And literally, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, there was a bottle of wine and Kari locked in her closet, bawling her eyes out when you've worked for 8 years to build a business and literally all the work you had done was gone, not for something that you did.
Yeah.
And that was hard to wrap my brain around. Is like, it's not our fault, but it's happening to me.
But it's real.
It was very real. And it was real for a lot of people. I'm not alone, right? There's a lot of people who had similar stories, whether it be different industries. So I gave my moment, right? I gave myself that day and I told my husband, just just let me cry it out, keep the kids away from me. Let me get through this. But then the next day, like my husband and I went on, I want to say it was a 6 mile walk. It was a very long through these hills and we were just dying. And I just said, we had nothing when we started. We had nothing when we started. We've done it. We can do this. And to your point, a lot of it was relationships we had that were not for business for me. Like would never,
Mhm.
right? They were just relationships that now all of a sudden, oh well, we can't do this, and we're going to start doing gifting, and that's an experience in a box. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
we're the experience factor, right? We just started picking up the phone and calling and not being afraid to go. Right? Everyone always says, don't be afraid to be a beginner, but with the
Mhm.
knowledge you have now,
Yeah.
and it resonated so much with me then. It's like, okay, we know what we know, but we can go back to the basics of just picking up that phone. Here, we'll do anything. And
Yeah.
then learning new skills, right? What can we do virtually, like we're doing right now?
Yeah.
And not being afraid to just be a beginner. And it's crazy, but it works.
So how did that transition to virtual work for you guys? What did that look
Full
like?
disclosure,
Yeah.
I sold virtual events before I even knew how I would even do it.
Yeah.
Right? Some people are like probably laughing if they're watching this now.
Hey, roll
But
the dice, right? I mean, what do you got to lose?
got nothing to lose. I knew AV teams that we've worked with that did our AV at live events.
Uh-huh.
They have the equipment. If not, we can buy equipment. So I was like, forget it. I just started calling everyone. We can pivot. We can pivot you to a virtual event. We've got a studio. We can broadcast from the studio. We didn't have a studio. I found one though. And I did. I mean, I even had clients who were like, well, if we did that, we don't have a host. And I'm like, I'll host it for you.
Yeah.
I'm your host too. We're a full package, right? You just start. And once the first person did, I hung up the phone and said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And we'll figure it out. But I always said like our business. So I told my husband when we started, I wanted to name it GSD, which is we get
Stuff
done.
done.
Yes. So,
Family show.
right. That's why I didn't say it. I won't say it, but we almost wanted to name the business that because that's
Yeah.
what we do. Right.
Yeah.
And that's also, it translates to events because live events, things go wrong and you just have to figure out a way to get it done.
Mhm.
And we just applied it here. And I mean, believe me, the first one I did, I was like, oh, please, Lord, please let this happen. Please let it actually broadcast. People actually see it.
Yeah.
But you learn. And so that's how we did it. I mean, we just started selling it before we even knew how to do it.
Yeah. And now the event industry has come back stronger than it was because
It
people
has.
got thirsty for human contact, but they were already hooked on the media.
Yes.
We I feel like we're double dipping.
I think you are 100% correct. And I would say the thirst for the live events, it's different. People really do want to have a good time now.
Uh-huh.
Like you see people engaging more and loving the fun stuff
Yeah.
where it was so some of the stuff, right? We all know corporate America, like some of these events are just so mundane and sit in a room and someone talk at you. And we have some clients that have just come, I mean, like, let's just make this fun.
Yeah.
Here's the content, but how do we deliver it in a different way? And to your point, people had a hunger to talk to each other.
Yeah.
That wasn't like at times people would skip out on things or whatever. And you're seeing that engagement, that human connection. People just, they missed it. You don't get it over a computer, right? You
Yeah.
just don't have it. It's not the same as when you're just right there face to face with people.
And not only that, you go to a conference today and you'll see people and I mean, let's face it, the government said for a year, you're not allowed to hug. Don't you
Right.
dare.
Not a lot.
And
And
now
for a
you go
hugger,
to a
that was hard for
conference
me.
and this wireless and you see these people who barely know each other, they're hugging one another. It's like, well, there is a human connection differential that we lost and we got it back in a big way.
And I think that always happens, right? I would even say in my like relate to career when people
Yeah.
told me like you can't do something. I went got gangbusters to prove them wrong. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. We were told we couldn't. So now that we can, I feel people going, tenfold because I can because I couldn't for a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
And
that's the human beings, right? Just us as human beings, that's normal.
Yeah.
right? You can't
And
have
the
something.
event used to be over at 6:17 or 6:30, whatever. And now they're like rolling hard at 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Very true. We've had to have
Yeah.
those conversations with a lot of the hotels. Like, are you prepared? Like, these people are going to want to continue to talk.
That's so
And it's
funny.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat to watch though, and especially from someone in the event industry.
Yeah.
It's been really cool to learn because there's a lot of the trends and events that I will tell you are complete opposite from
Yeah.
what it was before the shutdown. Like even the pattern of events and when people are doing them has changed. Like so much has changed. We used to have
Mhm.
it down to statistics. Like at this time of year you're gonna right, and then all of a sudden it was like we're back in events. We didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Our clients are like, okay, so we're going back live, what do you expect? I'm like, I could tell you when it's going to be the opposite. No one knows, we're all learning, but here's what I'm
Right.
hearing, right? That kind of thing. But it was definitely it's definitely the dynamic of events, to your point, is so different, and it's great. I love it. I'm embracing it because for us it's neat to watch and watch
Yeah.
people connect
And
again.
it's scalable now. I mean,
Mhm.
it's awesome. So I started this off talking about authentic. And
Yeah.
when I think about authentic, I actually do think about you because,
Thank you.
on social media and stuff, you talk about the entrepreneurial journey as
Yeah.
though it is a journey. You talked about rolling up and down hills and figuring it out and stuff like that. What is that response that you've gotten back that keeps you rolling into, hey, I'm Kari, I'm real. This is my life. Welcome aboard. It's so cool. But what does it do for it and why?
Yeah, no, all great questions there. But I would tell you, it's a journey, right? When I started this, I don't think I was as authentic at all. I think when you, for myself, and I can only speak from my experience when I started it, I had known the corporate world, so
Yeah.
I tried to be so button up, and so to me, that's all I knew was that's how you're going to get business is to play
Yeah.
this role, put on that suit, put on that perfect little face, like you know what I
Brooks
mean?
Brothers and a Windsor knot.
Yes, right? Exactly, exactly. And the more I got into the event world, I realized that's not me. I'm a little more vibrant than a darn Brooks Brothers suit.
I think
And
so.
right. And I look back on pictures of me speaking or at events and I was like, oh, I was trying to play that role. Right.
Yeah.
Because I thought that's how my business would be successful. And
Right.
part of it with age and over time, I'm realizing, wait, people are wanting to work with me because of me and the
Yeah.
vibrancy and all that comes with Kari Willis,
Yeah.
right? Right. But that's who I am. And I think once I one started dressing how I wanted to dress, which and in the colors and not being afraid to wear my bright pink on stage and things like that,
Yeah.
my business started to boom. And to your point with the social media and telling the stories, I started to get such feedback from people that it was resonating to them, that it was speaking to them. I started to get a lot of actually, well, wireless, especially back in the day, it was a lot of
Yeah.
men. And I got a lot of men reaching out and connecting me with their younger daughters or
Oh, cool.
saying, hey, I think you'd be a great mentor for my daughter. And that flipped a switch a bit for me to go, hold on, I'm going to show up as me because this is what I love. And I also started to show more my love for events and why, as opposed to giving the corporate answer of
Yeah.
what I thought they wanted to hear. And it was a big change in the business. And I will tell you, it was a big change for me to bring back the joy of why I do EFactor and why I love what we do. And that one thing that you bring up in the authenticity, it's hard. It sounds so easy. And I will tell you, it's an easy word to just say, oh, well, I'm authentic and myself. But I don't think a lot of us are, right? There's even times still when I post things and I'm like, should I post that? But now when I question myself, I was like, boom, go and move on with my day.
Yeah.
Because that little gut of like, should I means that it is authentic,
Yeah.
right? But
You
it's
know,
hard.
one of
It's
the
hard to show up authentically.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I mean, I started talking about myself as a recovering CEO. because I used to sit there and I would say, "Hey, you over there, you get that, and you get that," and now I turn around and I say, "You get." Oh, there's nobody there anymore. I'm the guy who has to take the garbage out on Thursday. and
Right?
and uh and yet I have a lot of zeal that you're talking about to bring, and a lot of wisdom to bring to industry. But it's not without its difficulty. You talk about that transitions. What was the most difficult part of building a growing and becoming EFactor? Because the business you are is what it is today. What's that obstacle that you look back on and go, "Wow, can't believe you got
Yeah,
through that"?
I would say there's many throughout the year, but I would say the theme or the trend of all of them is not getting too high and not getting too low. Um, there, the building I think came in those lows more than the highs.
Sure.
And I think no one ever had that conversation with me when starting a business. That the highs are great 100%, but you learn from those mistakes and those lows, and when your back's against the wall, and when you screwed up for a client and you're like, how do I fix it? When financially you don't know how you're going to make payroll in a day.
Exactly.
When, right?
Run
All
into
of
the mailbox for a check.
constant. Yes, please tell me it's there. Like you're waiting. Oh, been there, been there. And those moments made us successful.
Yeah,
And that I would say was the biggest learning was through those.
that's
Whether
a lot of heart.
it's yeah, and it's hard to pinpoint one, or two for you, but
Sure.
I would tell you that time when I couldn't pay payroll, now to this day, every day that when I pay payroll and I don't have to stress about it, I take that moment and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome that I can pay that many people and they can live from this company." That's amazing because I know what it felt like to not know
Exactly.
if I could.
Yeah.
And even like speaking on camera or on stages and things, I remember sitting there going, "Ooh, someday I'd love to be successful enough that someone wants to talk to me about my business." Or even that day that someone referred to my company as EFactor and not
Uh-huh.
Kari's company.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, they know my brand name," right? But it's all those failures or those moments where you weren't there throughout the process,
Yeah.
that I think it was the growing. It's that employee that's not happy working for you, and you're like, "What? I want you to be happy. Why?" And you peel back the onion, and you realize, oh, okay, to your point, like do this, do that. Do I know them as a person? Am I engaging with them in the growth that's right for them? Am I firing them up about what I'm building? Or maybe I'm not giving them enough information and they think that they're just doing this little piece and not seeing how that plays into the bigger picture of what
Yeah.
eFactor has. So I would say those stumbling blocks, those learning through those failures, they are gifts, even though
Yeah.
they're heavy and they're hard when they hit.
We talk about it as like their tuition. And you have just expressed that you have paid all that hard-won tuition, that
Yep.
expensive tuition that is, life is sometimes a very cruel teacher, but an effective one. But you also have had some mentors that you've dealt with in the past who you've learned from. That's low tuition learning. Tell
It
us
is.
tell us about that. Why should you encourage someone to be a low tuition learner?
One, it's free. And two, to your point, I think it's where to what you were talking about earlier, that's where you get the authentic learning, right? You can read a book. I read a lot. I love it. Like all sorts of business books right now. I'm learning right now how it's easier to 10x than 2x your business and reading that right now. But nothing's better than talking to someone who's been in the trenches. And
Yeah.
there's a quote, and I'll probably butcher it, but it's a quote around the fact of don't take advice from those who aren't in the arena, in
Yeah.
essence. Um, but it's so true. Other people will tell you how to run your business or tell you what you're doing wrong or be a naysayer. You can't listen to them. You need to talk and
Yeah.
listen to the mentors, to your point, of people who've been in the trenches, who have done it. And I will tell you, there are people out there that are mentors to me that probably don't even know they're my mentor.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I've talked to quite a few people about this, and they're like, same, same, right? Like Sarah Blakely, I'll put out there, who owns Spanx. I love her. One, to your point, she's so authentic. She's beyond authentic on how she communicates who she is. But the business that she ran, talking about her red backpack that went with her everywhere, she maybe didn't look the corporate part with her red backpack going in, but she did it. And I think that's, to your point, that learning from mentors or people who've been in the arena that you want to be in,
Yes.
whether it's in your industry or not, like have built like something you would want to build. That's the authentic learning. That's the real learning, right? Versus someone telling you, but by watching them, reading about them, seeing what downfalls, what failures they had to get to where they, and what did they learn from that? To me, that's the fun part. And I love reading those stories.
Yeah, that's so cool. And now, the other thing that I notice is that you, and frankly, every bit of every generation behind me, we came from a generation that said, just sit down, be quiet, be seen and not heard. And then it went to, I don't care how you do it, just get it done. You know, and so our ability as a generation to ask for help was inhibited by our experience. And yet I see this generation behind me and the one behind them. And you're talking about X's and Y's and Z's and alphas and millennials and all of them, they're like, they are embracing coaching. They come to me and they're like, we'd like to sit down and just talk with you so we can learn some things from you. And I'm like, we want to what?
Right.
And we're probably, I mean, my generation is probably not really very good at coaching yet, but we're working on it. Your generation is way good.
Well, I would say there's been a shift, and you're right, is that coaching. Because I even remember in my corporate career, I remember sitting on a committee and they were like, we need to tie an executive with someone who's been in their career 2 to 3 years. And this was like this new idea at the time. Like, how great is that to tie them together and help them? And you're right. Now at this phase, even with my own employees and myself, there's this hunger to learn. There's this hunger for coaching. You're watching it online. I'm honestly, to be full disclosure, I'm working on a program as we speak that I'm about to launch to help, and coach people that way, because there's a hunger for it. And it's neat for someone, to your point of your question earlier about what were those learning points and things that I was talking about, those failures. I would love nothing more than to mentor and help someone who's trying to make it as an entrepreneur, to share with them. And I also believe that's human nature and relationships. And if I go through this EFactor experience, however many years I end up having this business, and I don't give back and I don't share my knowledge, or how you talked about it, like, we always call it sweat equity is what we call it. But and this, what I've learned through that, then what are we doing? It's not all about us. It's how can we help others? And I think that there's a resonating energy around helping others and mentoring that you are seeing more and more now, because it wasn't there before. It used to be when someone would want to come learn. I remember managing my first management job. I had 6 employees, and one came to me and was like, wanted to learn. And I was like, this is a big deal. This person wants to grow their career. Like, now that's the norm. That's just how they function. And there's so much free content. I think,
no kidding,
right? YouTube. I mean, you could get a degree on Google, as we call it, right? You can get on there and learn. And I think the access to such good content for free has also helped grow that trend of wanting to learn and coaching and education.
All right. So the Grampion Nation is going to give you an opportunity to give back and help somebody. You're now a coach, and you have to talk to that person who's coming up through the ranks, and maybe they're a young entrepreneur. What advice, what counsel would you give to this skull full of mush that, like many of us, didn't know what they bit off when they took that giant bite?
All all of us. I had no idea, right? You think you've got it all dialed in. I think about that all the time. I made this plan, my business plan, and then a couple weeks into it, and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. I would say to the young entrepreneur or wanting to be, the biggest thing is don't be afraid of what you don't know. And that analysis paralysis, not getting stuck in that and going for it. I would say the biggest thing I have learned is that getting into action, the fear, the negative talk between our ears, all of those things go away when you get into action. And it's not about boiling the ocean immediately, one pot at a time, right?
Yeah.
Progress every day and consistency. I was just a consistent person, but now the biggest thing I would say is that you show up for that business or that idea. I don't care if you're doing it on the side right now or if you're doing it full time, but you're touching it every day. And that consistency of being in it and working and doing the things that propel it forward, the things that scare you, the things that you don't know, those are all the things that you need to get action on. The easy stuff, it's easy, right? We all get stuck in there, but really focusing on daily consistent activity in the things that are going to challenge you and not listening to the little ears, the little voice in between your ears, and not listening to your naysayers, because you're going to have them and people are going to question what you're doing every step of the way. I get it at 12 years. I had it at 5 months into the business. You're going to get it. But if you believe in it and you keep pushing forward, it may pivot along the way. It may not look the same as you're thinking right now, but if you get into action, then you'll know what's working, what's not.
Hey, if you're not prepared to pivot, you're not prepared.
Correct. Well, and you don't know what failures are going to hit you.
Exactly. Well, you have shown me that actually you do get a mulligan life. We lived through we got a mulligan with COVID, and we all get to start over a little bit. And I just want to thank you for being authentic. I want to thank you for being real, not only here on the Grampion, but also just in your daily life and with your folks. And congratulations on a great business. We're incredibly proud of one of our own going from wireless into events, and you're just killing it. So thanks for being on the Grampion.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been great and loved the conversation.
All right. So let's all be champions out there. Don't forget, tune in and subscribe. This is Jim. I out.
When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.